Okay, good morning. I'll go ahead and call the meeting to order. This is Tuesday, April 11th. Looks like we're started. We'll get started with the Pledge of Allegiance and then a prayer by Pastor Darrell Peterson of Grace Church. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Pastor.
Let's pray. Dear Heavenly Father, we just praise you and give you glory, give you honor, Lord God. We thank you, Father God, for the leadership within this commission. Father, we just thank you and praise you. And Father, we just ask you to give us the revelation, give us the unction as to how to run this part of the city and of the county. And I thank you, Father, for this day. We thank you for each and every person that has dedicated their services. And Father, we just praise for each and every one of the workers within this county, of all the things they do and what they have to do and what they don't like to do. And I just thank you for this meeting today. It'll be a blessed meeting and good things will come out of it. In Jesus' name, amen.
Thank you, Pastor. This time, let's see. I want to welcome everyone. District Attorney's here. I invited him back. He was unable to be here when we discussed and made decisions on the courthouse renovations, and I thought it would be fair for him to address the commission on his needs there and make sure there wasn't any questions. So
I appreciate this opportunity, Commissioner. Thank you for inviting me. I was out of town at a training conference, which I was presenting when this vote came up. I did send my deputy down, and I don't know that he was prepared to answer any questions, so I'm going to just give you a little bit of background on our office. I'll try to do this quickly. I know you have a long meeting, but when I arrived here in Reno County in January of 2001, the DA's office was located down where Division 3 is now, the courthouse. We were the main office was in the law enforcement center, and in that area we had 3 secretaries, 4 attorneys, and a victim witness coordinator. That included the district attorney, the deputy district attorney, and 2 assistant district attorneys. Division 3 at that point in time was where position 1 is now. So that area was occupied by Judge Becker and his staff. The juvenile division was on the 4th floor where it is right now, and there was 1 secretary and 1 attorney in that office. We had the DUI diversion office located at a room off of Division 3, which is now used just for conferencing for pretrials. And the juvenile diversion officer had space in the court services and community corrections complex. So we were spread out all over the place. And we added a little bit more staff. We had another secretary and a staff working in a closet. We moved all the files out to a secure area in the main area. And we were pretty much, our need for space was just incredible. And so when Public Works moved out of the 5th floor and went down to South Hutchinson in 2005, we took over the 5th floor. And when we went to the 5th floor, it covered, the offices there covered all of our personnel. So we were in one place all together at one time. Between then and 2018, we added a couple more staff people and an attorney, and we outgrew those offices. So in 2019, the law library was moved to the 1st floor. CASA, which was on the 4th floor where we had originally had our offices, moved up to where the law library had been, and we put 3 people in those small offices on the 4th floor. I know you've all seen them because I took everybody on a tour of those offices. So now we're spread out between 2 offices. Every position, at that point, every position in our office was filled. We added another position, probably where it shouldn't have been, up at the front desk, and we had 3 people working out of one office. So that's why we moved into the 4th floor. So the question is, what are our current space needs? A former commissioner went into our offices when all of this started, and I got an email from him, and he told me he didn't understand why my offices were so drab and dreary. I don't know what he expected, but he didn't expect a law office to look like our office does. And frankly, we haven't had any renovations or changes in that office since we were up there in 2005. So the carpet's still the same, it's dirty, all of the fixtures are the same, and we're trying to do all of our job in that one area. And the problem with that is when you're presenting yourself as a law office to the public, their expectations were much like Commissioner Sellers had been, that at least you would have an office that looked professional, where people weren't crowded in, and where there would be some privacy. Okay, we don't have that. What we have now is a big table in a room with where 2 people are sharing an office, and we have to take our victims back there. So we have 2 people in that room working while we're trying to have conversations with our victims on very personal issues. Sometimes it's their rape cases. Sometimes it's their children who are there for on indecent liberties cases. And a lot of times I go back there for discussions with the public, with the victims, citizens you represent, on homicide cases of unlawful distribution of controlled substance resulting in death. And we're having these conversations about the cases, and there are people present. That's not a professional law office. I've never seen a professional office without a conference room where you can take people, have some privacy, and talk to them. So the plan that you passed by a majority would give us that. First of all, it takes us off of the 4th floor and puts everybody together. It gives us a conference room and 5 new offices. All right, I can't fill all 5 offices now, admittedly, but if there are any changes to the courts in the future, or any changes to the way we practice, for example, if we ever want to have a mental health court, I'm going to need another attorney, and it makes sense to have that done now all at once in the entire courthouse, than to wait and try to find space for us later. There are no other spaces for us in the courthouse. So what this will allow us to do is have an area where we can take victims, and I will have my victim witness coordinator and other personnel over on the east side, so that we don't have to parade a victim all the way down the hall to the back office where everybody sees them, and they have to walk in front of everybody to get to a meeting with our attorneys. That's where it is right now. This way we go around the corner and they don't have to be paraded down the hallway. So it'd be great for victim services. It's also great for training. Right now I have an attorney downstairs. He's my newest attorney in the office. He's a juvenile attorney. And the problem we've had in the past is that when attorneys are in satellite offices by themselves, there begins to be a sense of autonomy, which is not good. But they're also missing out on the ability to conference with other attorneys and learn from them. All of my attorneys are in one part of my office. They get together, they talk about issues, they talk about things in their cases, they run ideas and questions off of each other. And when I've got a brand new attorney downstairs who doesn't ever get a chance to be a part of that, then that's a problem. And they can't, and it's not a situation, these are impromptu meetings. It's not something where you can call a meeting and have somebody come up. They get together, they hear each other, they talk, and he could step out of his office and get that training. There's also an accountability issue. Having everybody on the 5th floor makes them all more accountable. Everybody sees when they come and go, and it makes them more accountable to me. It's difficult. We have a new evaluation process, as you know, that I have spoken about, that is not necessarily conducive to a law office, because it takes a lot of personal attention and my ability to go and see what my attorneys are doing. If they're spread out, I can't do that. So it's difficult enough just having them all in one office, but it will help with that accountability when it comes to evaluations. It also helps with communications, so that we have a situation now where we have departments that are able to communicate with each other just by saying something. They don't have to take time to do an email and those types of things. And it also helps with communication with other entities. I will again have a conference room where I have a place to go and meet with the sheriff, meet with the police officers, meet with the chief and other authorities, where we can have a private conversation, and I don't have to worry about anything we're doing being overheard by someone else. I have a lot of private conversations in my offices. We talk to confidential informants, we talk about confidential informants, and those things it's important that we have a place where we can have a confidential discussion, all right? It also helps with office cohesion. And we've got a good office atmosphere. We try to have a family atmosphere up in my office, so everybody gets along really well, and the more we have everybody together, the better that would be. Finally, or not finally, but it also helps with the ability to hire and retain staff, okay? If you're applying for 2 or 3 different jobs and you're an attorney, one of the things you're looking for is an office area and an office space that is conducive to you doing your work. If we come up and it's a drab and dreary, and that's not my term, that was Commissioner Seller's term, it's a drab and dreary office, you're likely to go someplace else. The other part is retaining those attorneys. The fact that the county commission has supported this project sends a message to my attorneys. And that message is that we think that you're worth investing money in because you have an important job. You know, I don't know if everybody understands what we do, but we prosecute criminal cases. And while we don't represent in an attorney-client situation the citizens of this community, we do represent their interests. We represent the interests of justice. And it is important that they have confidence in what we're doing. My job is to make sure I have the most qualified prosecutors and the most qualified staff. I have a great staff. I have great prosecutors. I want to keep them. And this move by you will make a big difference. The other thing is, in order to do everything else that they want to do in this courthouse, the renovation to the district attorney's office has to be part of that. They want to move Mike Matthews eventually up to where legal services is. Well, where are you going to put legal services? When we vacate the 4th floor, that's where their offices will be. So those offices will be used immediately. And in order for the whole plan to come together, we have to be able to move those employees upstairs. Now, I don't know how many of you are familiar with diversion. Are you guys familiar with diversion? Most counties, and not all counties in Kansas, have a diversion program. Most counties, that diversion program, money goes in the county general fund, but it's controlled by the county or district attorney. County or district attorney is a person who decides where that money is going to be spent. That's not what we have here. When Keith Schroeder developed this program, he put all the money into the county commission, or into the county fund, county general fund, with some of it going to the courts. None of it goes to the courts anymore, because 2 years ago, the courts decided that we were going to have to go to a new system called Odyssey. And the cost for our office and the county for maintaining that system grew exponentially. So now we transfer all the money from our diversion fund goes to the county general fund. The only monies that will be dedicated out of that fund is when we start the first-time drug diversion program, and some of those monies by statute will have to go to make sure that we fund community corrections and their supervision of the funds. But so you know, since 2003, the district attorney's office has generated for the county general fund $1,736,379.52. So there's almost every penny of the money for this renovation can be tracked to our diversion program. So this is money that has been, was from our from the reserve that the diversion fund helped create, and was already earmarked for this project. No taxes are going for this. And we are now supplying the county in the last 3 years, the last 3 years, 2020, our diversion funds were over 133,000. 2021, 164,000. 2022, 155,000. That's the money that's being generated out of my office. And so it's not a situation where the tax money is going to do this. Our diversion funds continue to bring money into the county. We are a revenue generating department, not just a revenue eating department. So I want to make sure that everyone knew that it's not coming from taxes. I'm going to be frank, I was disappointed when I heard about the discussion to a certain extent, because nobody asked me any questions. People didn't come to me and ask me about this. I may have gotten other sources, but nobody came to ask me. This is my department. I'm the person who knows what we need, not somebody else. Not somebody who never comes to my department, who's making assumptions. I've had a really good relationship with the commission since I started here. I've enjoyed working with the commission. I brought things to the commission. You can ask Randy or Daniel and Ron about this. I brought things that I didn't need to bring to the commission, just so you know what I'd be doing. I want that to continue. But I would ask that if there are, in the future, if there are questions, if you have concerns about something that's going to be happening, that's going to be affecting my office, come and ask me about it. Let's talk about it. I want you to have the full information that I have, so that you can make the decision that the citizens elected you to make. So that's basically what I wanted to make sure everybody understood is I'm always available. My door's open to any of you anytime, as long as it's not 3 or more of you. All right? If it's 3 or more of you, would make a violation of open meetings. So we won't do that. But if you have, so are there any questions right now of anything that I've gone over? Does anybody have any questions or any comments or anything that, any criticism? Do you think the way I'm running my office or the way this has been presented?
Questions for Mr. Stanton? Mr. Whitesell?
So I've got a couple for you, Mr. Stanton, and these are probably things that you're not prepared to answer today, and that's fine. You know, if you can get back to me with some answers, if you're not, that's cool. But you had mentioned that we've been adding people to your office over the years, and I'm sure there's good reasons for that. But I'm also sure that the people of the county would like to know what those are, and so I was wondering if you might be able to give me at some point a list of the people that have been added, say, over the last 10 years and what they've been added to do, so we can understand it better.
Okay, well, first of all, I don't add somebody every year.
Oh, no, that's not what I was saying.
Okay, that's what I thought I heard you say.
Oh, no, you were just saying during your presentation about the people that you'd added, and so you need more space, and so I was just curious.
Well, I can tell you generally that the reason that we've added people is because we receive a lot of instruction from the Kansas legislature on duties that we have. And those duties expand almost yearly. And when we have to expand those duties, then we have to have people that can cover those duties. And so we have expanded. We have expanded because of discovery. The police departments now provide us with an enormous amount of dash cam and body videos that we have to turn over to defense counsel. So one of the positions was to help get that information out to defense counsel. As far as attorneys, we've added attorneys because our workload is such that we've needed them. And our attorneys that we've added we have one of the highest caseloads in the state. I could actually use another attorney. I'm not asking for one. But we are staffed because of the workload. That's the reason.
Is that because crime is increasing, or or are we just prosecuting more people, or, and I just really don't know, so I'm asking.
I don't know that the crime, I don't have the crime rate statistics with me. I know that we have a large amount of serious crime. The legislature created a new crime a while back called unlawful distribution resulting in death, and we are prosecuting multiple cases of that. And I'm taking on all of those prosecutions because my attorneys can't afford to take them on. They don't have the time. I don't have the time, but I do it anyway. Because I think that when somebody dies of an overdose, whoever distributed those drugs should pay a penalty. All right, so there are increases of certain types of crimes, and those certain types of crimes are very serious in nature and take a lot of time. If all we were doing is barking dog complaints, we wouldn't need as many attorneys. But that's not what we do in my office. We prosecute felonies, we prosecute misdemeanors, we prosecute all the traffic that comes from the county and from the patrol. We prosecute juvenile cases, SINK cases, mental illness cases, care and treatment cases. We handle all of those cases, whereas, so for example, the public defender's office has a larger staff than mine, and all they do is felonies. So we're prosecuting all of the cases, they're defending some of the cases, and they have a larger staff than I do. So,
Thank you very much, sir.
any other questions?
I just know that in my time on the commission, which is 5.5 years, I have had conversations with you and the previous DA, and the amount of discovery information that you are handling has greatly increased since I've been on the commission.
That's right.
And that discovery takes a lot of time to go through all of that, like you mentioned, cams, body cams, all the information that didn't used to be required to follow through to make a case or to decide whether to make a case or not has greatly increased, and that time is just because of legislation, because of lots of different things, the judges and et cetera, that it's harder to be really efficient when you have that much information to go through. Maybe that's not the right word, but I have seen that increase a lot.
Yeah.
And I know.
I think the efficiencies are there. I think one of the problems are that we deal with Hutchinson Police Department, Reno County Sheriff's Office, South Hutchinson Police Department, KHP, Haven Police Department. All these departments have different ways of collecting their information, and they have different policies on how they present it to us. We were just advised yesterday through an email that the city was no longer going to provide us discovery, hard copy discovery for juvenile cases, which they've always done. I don't have staff to cover, to go in and search the databases for all of the discovery for juvenile cases. That's going to be a real problem for me. I don't know that we have the personnel to be able to do that at this point in time. If they continue with their policy, then that's going to result in me trying to figure out how I'm going to get that discovery out to defense counsel. So, and you have to remember, back when I was a cop in the 80s, we didn't have video cams, we didn't have body cams. But if you think about a large case, for example, the Hardwick case that we just sentenced on Friday, all right? Successful prosecution, consecutive life sentences without the possibility of parole for 50 years, so he'll be in prison for 100 years. All right? There were 60 videos that we had to go through, from body cam videos to videos taken at the scene to car cameras and videos. You get involved in a shooting on a street. An officer makes a stop and they're involved in the shooting. Every officer that comes in there is going to have both a video and a body cam. We have to get through all of that. It's not only that we have to give the discovery, but we as attorneys have to review every one of those videos. You want to know why we have to have more attorneys? That's the reason. a case that would take us, let's say, 40 hours to prepare to prosecute 15 years ago, now takes us 120 or 140 hours. So it's not just a function of crime increasing or cases filed increasing. It's a function of how much time it takes to prepare to do our job. If somebody's a victim in this community, they don't want us to do our job partway. They want us to give. I tell you, every victim wants us to be concentrating on their case 100% of the time, which we cannot do. But I expect, and my attorneys expect, to be going to court prepared, which means they have reviewed every single piece of evidence. And the amount of time that takes is incredible. So it's simply not a function of the crime rate. It's a function of how much time it takes to prepare a case so that we can go into court and represent the interests of justice in this community. And that's what we need to do. And I expect that of my prosecutors, and I know that they expect that of themselves.
Commissioner Bogner, you have anything?
Yeah, I want to thank you for coming today and making clear why the spending of these funds was needed. When I went on a tour with you, I got the same impressions as Mr. Sellers. The overcrowding, things weren't, you could just see it wasn't right, and it wasn't professional, just exactly like you said. And I got a lot of guff from my vote, but I'm glad I made it. And the best thing about you coming here today and explaining everything in detail, maybe now the public that raked certain ones of us over the coals for our vote can get online and listen to you directly and know why we made the vote the way we made it. I appreciate your time today immensely.
I appreciate your support. Thank you.
Yeah, I appreciate you being here and sharing that with us as well.
Thank
So,
you, Commissioner
thank
Parks.
you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Stanton, for being here today.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to public comment for items not on the agenda. Is there anyone here for an item that's not on the agenda? Would like to address the commission? Doesn't look like it. Okay. Additions to the agenda. I have one request by staff. Item 8E. We're going to put that together more like a study session. We're going to bring a table up to the front for health department staff. So if there's no objection, we'll move 8E down to after the county commission reports. Any objection there? No, okay. We'll do that. Does the commission have any other changes? No, staff? Good, okay. Item 6 is the consent agenda. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I would move to approve the consent agenda as presented by staff.
Commissioner Hurst moves. Is there a second? I'll second that. Keep it moving. Any discussion on the consent agenda?
I think some of these we've been brought before us before with the intentions of where they were, of what was needed and how they were going to be financed, such as the Fire District 3.
Continue to work with Randy on keeping the consent agenda a little tighter, so hopefully this is a good list. Any other comments? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Commissioner Hurst.
Yes.
Commissioner Parks.
Yes.
Commissioner Bogner.
Yes.
Commissioner Weitzel.
Yes.
Commissioner Friesen.
Yes, motion passes 5-0. Item 7A through C are 3 budget presentations. First on the list is the County Police and Sheriff Chaplaincy Program.
Good morning. Morning. I do have a handout. I don't know if you already got that.
We've got it.
You got it?
Yep.
Okay. Again, thank you for this time.
And I might just make a comment. We've moved the podium back, I think, to hit the mic, but it's further away from us, so speakers could speak up a little bit.
Sure.
Apologize for that.
Oh, that's all right.
Yeah.
I'm a pastor. I have no problem with that.
All right.
I took over as director of Reno County Police and Sheriff Chaplaincy 2 years ago. And as you may or may not know, Chaplain Mel Parrott passed away this past year. And so it all falls on my shoulders, and it's an honor to serve. According to Mel Parrott, the sources of funding for our chaplaincy have been from the Reno County Commission, $2,000 a year. Throughout the year, we are able to reach out to Elliott Mortuary, Alan Samuels, for some community projects such as Thanksgiving dinners, Christmas dinners for the officers and such, but those are ancillary and not a part of our main function as chaplains, as far as being with the officers, having the chaplain card. And so the purpose of the funding in the past and hopefully in the future is that the funds that are received are used for training. As the chaplain director now, Mel Parrott in the past had used part of the funds for his cell phone because he did take the calls for the death notifications. However, we're not going to use it for those funds. The funds that were received from the commission will be used solely for training. I do have with me the last 2 years of First National Bank statements for our chaplaincy, showing that since I've taken over, that the only use of these funds are for training. And so I have provided that if needed. So basically our training is this: once a year, Chaplain Adam Wooten and myself have the opportunity to go to the International Conference of Police Chaplains, and they hold these in various places across the United States, and we attend those. It's a 40-hour training, and it provides us with opportunities to meet other chaplains, to learn best practices, and to just be challenged as chaplains to do a better job. And it's always a blessing to go. Again, it's 40 hours of classroom training on critical incidents, on how to counsel officers, how to work with the public as chaplains. And so it's been a great blessing. And so we assist police and sheriff officers on death notifications. Again, I'm a volunteer. I do not get paid to do this. So I'm called day or night, and I get a lot of calls. And then I ride along with officers. I go with officers at least once a week for 6 hours on my own time. I counsel with them, spend time with them, and it's always a blessing. I handle funerals for those that do not have pastors. I have done several funerals at my church at my own expense, at my own time, which is a blessing to do. So we provide a lot of support to law enforcement. I also do all the debriefings now. And so anytime there's a critical incident, anybody was involved with a critical incident, whether it's a suicide or a child death, they come to my church. We have a separate room that we have set up that is a room where all the officers, fire department, EMT can come to my church, and I do all the debriefings now. And so that has been a great opportunity. So the funds from our commission, number 3, are used for training needs. We will split the $2,000 between us both. This gives Adam and I both $1,000. Adam is a part-time chaplain as well. He handles evening calls if I can't get to them, and also weekends. As a pastor, obviously I'm behind the pulpit, and so Adam is able to step in and help. And Adam works for the city in the Public Works Department. Adam Wooten, if you're not familiar with him, and he's been a chaplain with me for 2 years. We're going to split the $2,000. Number 4, unfortunately, this funding falls short of the actual need we have. For example, this year, the ATS Annual Training Seminar is being held in Phoenix. You can go to the website ATS ICPC4cops.org to verify. This is what we have to have for certification according to our law enforcement. They want us certified by ICPC, which I am, and Adam is as well. I give you the breakdown of the costs. The overall cost per chaplain is $1,938 per chaplain just for this year's ATS. We've not had an increase in the 2,000, and I would like to ask for an additional $2,000, and I'll be accountable for those funds as always, and I can provide again documentation for the expenditures there. But if that's okay, I would like to request that. If not, I understand the 2,000. We appreciate that. We do not get funded by law enforcement, other than they have given a little bit of money in the past for a few things, but there's no budget in law enforcement for our chaplaincy program. I am meeting today at 2 o'clock with my captains, Captain Gates and Captain Lutz, to discuss this and ask them why we're not being funded, and ask them why we don't get an annual funding from either Sheriff's Department or Police Department for our training, since we're serving them. And why that is, and I'll discover that. I can come back at a later time and reveal that to you if you need me to. So right now we get 2,000. It falls short of the need for training for both of us. However, if that's not something that's within the budget, again, I can go to Tom Elliott. I can go to Alan Samuels. John Breslin has said that I could go to him. I do have other sources I could go to, but those sources are used for the ancillary things that we do, not for the main things that we do. So it's kind of tough to go to Tom several times a year for more funds when he already provides those liberally for us at Thanksgiving and Christmas and such. Number 6, I'm going to not bring up, and that is the request for a part-time law enforcement chaplain. I have done an extensive study the last 2 years on the need for a part-time law enforcement chaplain to be hired, but I don't believe that is for this meeting. That's for my department and for my captains to review. The commissioner should not have to bear the burden of my request to have a law enforcement chaplain hired. There's lots of reasons why, but that's for them to discover. So I'm going to delete that off of the request today, number 6. So with that, number 5, I'm requesting 2,000 annual funding, which has been given to our chaplaincy for the last, I'm not sure how many years. I want to say it's been over 20, plus an additional 2,000. So any questions?
Thank you, Chaplain Haley. Just as a precursor, this is the first set of budget conversations. Our job here is to kind of give feedback back to the county administrator. We're not approving individual budgets today, and he'll feather that into the budget. But certainly, the commission's welcome to ask questions and provide a consensus to Randy on each budget item. So with that, are there questions from the commission?
Well, Pastor Haley, I appreciate what you guys do. I really do. It's a tough job sometimes to go serve death notices and the things that you do. I have been involved in the past to some degree with that, but it's just, I do appreciate that. And it'll never be enough for what you do. It isn't in the ministry, it won't be here. So I fully support what you do. I do have a question though, because I don't know the answer to this. Sure. If you want, churches, do they get behind that any in giving to support that cause? And is there ever a time when the chaplains go and present their work to churches?
That's great that you share that. As I've taken over as a director I have done a lot of research and hours of research on what other cities are doing with their chaplains and what other chaplains are doing with other departments to raise funds or to help with the chaplaincy program. Again, I have begun meetings with my captains. It was Captain Blumenhorst and Captain Collins, and now recently they just moved the captains around, and so I have 2 new captains. So I get to introduce to them everything I've been trying to work with Captain Blumenhorst and Collins these last 2 years. Basically, the model that I was handed was $2,000. I have a chaplain car that is very old, which I love. That's great. It works, and I'm going to keep that. But and then they pay for the city pays for the fuel and for the upkeep of the vehicle, and that's all that we get there, which is great. It pays for the fuel and the upkeep of the vehicle, and also the tags. But as far as I've been doing a lot of collaborating with other chaplains on what they're doing, and so there are things that I'm going to be doing this year to just explore opportunities and options so that when I come back next year, I'll have had a lot more time to understand what other chaplains are doing and what works best. Again, I just took over from Mel this last year completely, and so I'm just getting my feet underneath me as what all I can do. And so I've taken a lot on, and it's a great opportunity, but I'm also learning a lot. And that's where meeting today with Captain Gates and Lutz about the part-time chaplaincy hiring is going to be something that I'm sure they're not ready for, but needs to be addressed, and I'm going to talk to them about that. So as far as churches go, I haven't seen a lot of that. What I have seen more is community, reaching out to the community, different businesses, different, like for example, Tom Elliott, Alan Samuels, and others that have reached out to me and said, hey, if you need anything, let me know. So what that looks like as far as a monthly budget or an annual gift, Tom said, if you need anything, let me know. Well, I've gone to Tom a lot of times, and he's come through. So I just hate to keep going because I realize it's a gift, and so we want to be careful of that. We don't do a whole lot extra. I don't have a big job as far as, I have a big job, but I don't have a lot of things that I do that I need money for. So praise the Lord for that. I just need to go to training, and then I'm out of your hair. Amen. I could do the rest of that on my own as far as throughout the year, the ancillary things that I'll be doing for the officers and such like that. But the biggest thing is my training. I really feel like it is a plus and a benefit for me to go to see what other chaplains are doing, how they're serving their community. It opens up so much for me to learn, and so that's where this extra is needed, if possible.
Any other quick comments?
Thank you for your time.
Amen.
It's big time volunteering.
Yes.
And it's needed.
It's a blessing.
The other thing is all you're asking is to keep your credentials up.
Yes, sir.
So I've read this previously, and it's a good program.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Yes, sir.
So I actually thought number 6 was honestly the most important part of this. I was actually surprised to find out that it was a volunteer position, and I always thought it would be under the sheriff's, but I don't know if that's to keep maybe the sheriff's office from dictating what you can do. But you know, our people in blue need a lot of prayer, and they need a lot of support, and so I mean, I personally think we ought to make it at least a part-time paid position, because I know there's a lot to it, and I know the need is there.
Yes.
And so I thank you for what you do, and you know, anything I can do to help, let me know.
Yes, sir. I know your time is valuable, and I won't take any more of it. Just quickly, the purpose of number 6 is, as a volunteer, you only have so much reach into their lives. As a paid part-time law enforcement chaplain, there comes with it a recognition when you walk on property that you are one of them, that you are a part of them in a way that they have to recognize. Our law enforcement deal with a lot,
They go through a lot. I hear it all when I'm in the vehicle with them. And they see a lot, and what I've always learned is critical incidents, you go through one, but you try going through 30, 40, 50, that's when it starts to mount. And having someone that you recognize as a peer, that you recognize not just as a volunteer, now thankfully volunteer chaplain who loves and prays for them, but somebody who they're accountable to, somebody they have to come and talk to, and someone that is outside of their world, but yet with them. Sometimes it's hard to talk to a peer. The law enforcement has a peer group that meets, but it's hard to talk to a peer. A chaplain is somebody who is not your pastor, who is not your peer, who is not your spouse, but is somebody who you can talk to in a private setting and share your deepest burdens, your sorrows, and you know that it's not going to go anywhere and no one's going to know besides your chaplain. And I'm telling you, the last 2 years, I've caught a lot of tears from officers and a lot of private meetings. And so this really has been a burden to me. I'm trusting the Lord to guide and direct, but I realize for today's meeting, it's just about the funding for the 2,000. But I wanted to bring that, and I will scratch number 6. Again, I apologize to take so much time. So anything else I can do?
I am glad that you brought up about the portion of time and the things that are, and the chaplaincies need with our officers. Because in the past, I've talked with the sheriff's department about some things, and people don't realize, I think, that they just see somebody in blue, but when they have to go through what you just mentioned and so forth, how important it is in that aspect.
Thank you, sir.
I appreciate you being here today and educating us on, in some ways it's a little embarrassing that we only fund $2,000 of your work today. And so I agree with Commissioner Weitzel that number 6 would probably receive some reception here if you brought it back at the right time, especially if we can cooperate with the city of Hutch in that effort. So I don't think you're going to have any issue with the $4,000 from this group, and appreciate you being here. Thank you. Thank you for your service and all of your volunteer work. I can't believe how much you do for free for our community, so thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you, officer. Thank you, officers. Thank you, commissioners.
Thank you, Bishop. Thank you. Number 7 is the museum budget, Reno County Museum 2024. 7B.
Morning. This is my first time addressing the county commissioner, so I'm thankful for the invite today. So my name is David Reed, and as a curator, I'm here representing the Reno County Museum. This is Jason Steele. He's president of our board of directors. The museum currently has a staff of 4 full-time Historical Society employees. Thomas and Keeley are archivists. Bree is our events coordinator. And as I mentioned, I'm the curator. All 4 of us have master's degrees related to museum work, and we also have a complement of 9 volunteers who help us in a variety of capacities, such as running our reception desk and assisting with archival work. The Reno County Museum boasts one of the largest collections in the state. As of today, we currently have over 40,000 records with 200,000 individually numbered items. We currently have a backlog of about 10 years with several thousand additional items waiting to be processed. At the end of the pandemic, our attendance was a little under 3,000 visitors. Last year, we were close to 8,000 visitors. As other organizations around town have begun to get back on their feet, we have collaborated with several, including the library and the Art Center. We received a grant from the Hutchinson Community Foundation to update our children's area, and we finally published a book on Reno County history that is available nationwide. In 1988, the residents of Reno County passed a .4 mil levy to help fund the museum, and in all those years, the museum has never received a full allocation. In 2000, the Reno County Museum had a budget of $135,000, which is equivalent to $234,000 today. But since then, the museum budget has remained unchanged for 15 of the last 22 years. The budget deficiencies have led to a number of issues within the museum. Infrastructure is in need of repair and renovation throughout. The staff struggles to be proactive in many of these areas, and for the last several years, the maintenance budget has been exceeded because of unexpected problems. Also, over the last 20 years, the staff has dwindled from 8 to 4. We're also finding it difficult to address the archival and storage issues in a way that is in line with current practices. The residents of Reno County continue to show their interest in preserving their history as donations continue on a weekly basis. Many other museums around the state do not take objects in, but the staff of the Reno County Museum will always find a way to save this part of our cultural heritage. We constantly explore new archival solutions and use our volunteers to help address the backlog. The mission statement is what we strive to fulfill every single day. To inspire awareness, we attempt to increase our footprint in the community at every opportunity. We were the lead organization in the 150th anniversary celebration for both the city and the county. We've also collaborated with half a dozen organizations and participate in the SEER program. The museum often has research requests from across the country, and we also help local residents research aspects of our history that directly impacts them. In the past, the museum has had several programs that were aimed at all age levels, such as field trips, lecture series, newsletters, and reenactments. Today, we are currently renovating our main gallery to tell a more comprehensive history of Reno County that will allow us to rotate through exhibits in a more timely fashion. Put simply, the museum requests a $47,000 increase to our budget. This covers the 6.5% inflation rate over last year and the wages to hire an educator. This meager increase is a very small part of the Reno County budget, which has seen a substantial increase over the last several years and has nearly doubled since 2006. The Reno County Museum has been without an educator since 2008, and as such, the attendance numbers show the impact of not having one. Field trips are non-existent, and the staff are unable to visit schools for special history lessons, and the educational material in the museum is woefully out of date. We believe that our collection is large enough to help support bringing back essential programs and engaging children at a young age. The educator would help increase the footprint of the museum by actively engaging with schools and other learning institutions to drive traffic into the museum. The educator will create new curriculum, be available to provide lectures to a variety of organizations, and to also bring in speakers from various historical fields for lectures. With an emphasis on these programs, we will then be able to boost attendance and start creating perks that will entice people to become members once again. The state of Kansas is currently undergoing a brain drain, and a 2016 study by WSU shows that Reno County could lose 25% of its population within 50 years. In fact, we're already seeing some of that as Reno County has been losing numbers since about 2010. A museum can help lessen this impact in a variety of ways. By acting as a cultural hub for the county, a fully funded museum can help be a driving force in promoting the unique history of this county and highlight the extraordinary opportunities that can only be found here. As part of the Chamber of Commerce's master plan for the downtown area, we aim to be a vital component in anchoring South Main Street. The Reno County was known throughout South Central Kansas as a place for learning with a great number of programs, and the people of Reno County deserve to have those things brought back. So to summarize, we urge the commissioners to make a minimal investment in the museum. We have a track record of using money wisely, and this modest increase in the museum's budget will go far in promoting not only history, but Reno County as a whole. Once again, we ask for $47,000 to offset inflation and wages to hire an educator. I thank you all for your consideration.
Thank you. Questions?
What kind of attendance numbers are you seeing now?
So for the first part of the year, I think we're going to pass the 8,000 people mark. I think the numbers up to now are about 3,000, and school hasn't even let out yet. During spring break, it was kind of a madhouse. We were not used to the traffic that we had during spring break, so we're definitely seeing more of an uptick.
And how does that compare to what it has historically been?
So historically, before the pandemic, we were hovering around 10 or 11,000. In the early 2000s, we were up around 20,000. And we did that for, I think, 5 years in a row. Up through the 90s, it was just a steady increase. And then about 2005, it was just a slow march down to about 10,000 where it's remained since then.
What's your hourly rate for research?
$20 an hour. Yeah.
And according to your data here, membership is $5 a person, right?
$25 a person. Is the base level. Yeah.
Well, I was just looking up there. You said you got 20. At one point, you said you had 500 memberships in this report that you gave out. But in the report also, you only had $2,500 as income from memberships.
That's correct. So we recently revamped our membership program. Most of those members that we have typically exceed what a normal membership would cost. I know we had 3 or 4 people last year who donated $500, which is they've been lifelong supporters of the museum for years, and we usually expect to see their check in the mail. Our membership as a whole is not even close to 500. I don't think we've had above 100 in many, many, many years. But having very few perks, we're a free museum. So it's not one of those things where we give out free tickets for being a member. And so one of the few perks that we have is free use of our conference room. And we're trying to bring back some of the events that would, require a ticket or require, a little bit extra to take full advantage of that event. But having an educator who can bring back those programs that will have like a summer school for kids to learn about museum stuff, and having a lecture where you need to have tickets to come in. Those are the kinds of things that we're trying to bring back to our membership base so that people will be incentivized to become members like they used to be.
I know years ago, my mother was a member there, and you had an event that brought in a musical group, and that was a charge fee for that.
Right.
So we had a new gathering, something.
We would love to bring those back, for sure. And Bree is one of our newest additions as an event coordinator. We kind of had to shoehorn her into the budget, and quite frankly, she could go over to Jumpstart and make more money than what she's making at the museum. But like all of us, we love what we do. We love our mission. We love supporting the county in a pretty unique way. And so she's come up with a lot of really great opportunities that aren't going to break the bank, but also are going to stimulate people to remember that Reno County has a museum and we're pretty active. But I think a lot of times we kind of fall off the radar for a lot of reasons. But we're definitely trying to make those strides.
I know years ago, the commission allocated some funds, I don't know, 3 or 4 years ago, quite a bit of money to do HVAC repair and installation. And I thought that was going to be a one-time deal, but it stayed in the budget.
Yes.
And so it wasn't just a one-time thing like I had anticipated it being. So that amount of money stayed in the budget the next year, and it's continued to stay in there. And I would be interested in your comments and cash flow, if you would, about how an educator could pay for themselves.
So the educator can pay for itself by reestablishing those programs that we used to have. I think having events that require tickets and allowing us to charge for appearances for an educator. We get a lot of requests from several organizations for us to come and do presentations about history, various aspects, and there's not enough of us to take full advantage of that. And I think once we start making those inroads with not only those kind of programs, but also events and summer schools, I think that there's enough interest in the museum that I think people would start to start generating income. I think a lot of it's going to come through our memberships is what we're anticipating.
Well, you think, but I want to, have you got it down in black and white where you can come
Not
up
in
with
black and
something?
white.
Well, if you're going to ask for something, I think you ought to have a plan
Sure.
and a financial plan.
Sure. Do you have anything you want to add to that?
We can
And I may have missed out on the membership. It's more or less just a donation at this point. The membership is.
Yes.
So, and I missed this too, probably historically from what you can look back. Has it declined, rose, up and down?
It's been a steady decline.
It's steady decline.
Yeah.
That answers my question. Thank you.
Thank you for your time. Appreciate
Thanks. I appreciate it.
7C is the Reno County.
One other question.
One other question.
I'm sorry, I didn't look at my notes, okay? You said there was a book published,
Yes.
a national book?
Yes.
Is there any commission or anything on that that goes back to the?
All of the royalties go back to the museum.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
And if you guys need a copy, come get one. I can sign it for you.
What are your hours?
So we're open Tuesday through Friday, 9 to 5, and then on Saturdays, 11 to 5. We're closed on Sundays and Mondays.
I will say that my wife is a member of the Big Brothers Big Sisters program, and at the playground area, she really enjoyed it. And so
Yeah.
has her little sis.
I'm glad to hear that. We've made a lot of changes there, so that's good. I appreciate it.
Thank you all. 7C is the Reno County Drug Court.
Good morning, Commissioners. I am Liberty Thompson. I'm the coordinator for the Reno County Drug Court Program. For those of you that are new to the board, just a little history on drug court. We were founded in 2011 in an effort to help those that are on probation that are maybe not doing as well. It's a program designed for people with the highest risk of offending and also the highest needs for services. The drug court program requests $10,000 in special alcohol tax funds. Special alcohol tax is required to spend a portion of that on treatment. And this has historically been a good use of the funds. So at any given time, we have about 32 participants in our program. We have about 10 to 15 graduates a year out of that program. And you can see from our stats, out of those graduates, most of them don't reoffend for at least 5 years, which is pretty good statistics on our part. We collaborate with a lot of different agencies in town, Horizons, Mental Health Center, SAC, Substance Abuse Center of Kansas, Reno Alcohol and Drug Services, Hutchinson PD, the DA, the DA's office. So we all come together every other week to discuss each person that's in the program, and we decide what the best course of action for that person might be. And that helps us give a really tailored program to each person that is a participant. The money that we use for Reno County Drug Court, about $8,000 of that goes to Oxford house rent. So if you're unfamiliar with Oxford, those are peer-run houses in the community that are there for sober living. So everybody in the house has agreed to remain drug-free. And if they do not, they have about an hour to get out of the house. So we feel like that is a great place for all of our participants to be. The other part of that funds, we do a lot of different things. We buy incentives for participants that are doing well. Bus tickets, we provide IDs, we provide medications, we pay for medications, just anything that that participant may need to be successful. And the reason we do that is because of a lot of our participants, they're either coming from jail or they're coming from inpatient treatment, and they're just trying to get a leg up. So we provide a lot of support until they can get a job and start working and start paying for a lot of these things themselves. That's about all I have. If you have any questions for me. There's also a budget included.
Questions?
I would say that if the rest of the commission has never been up and attended a drug court session, I wish you would go there. And also there, I believe you have an annual, I think it's an annual, a kind of a graduation ceremony type, meet and greet, video, meet the people that are involved. And I think I was the only one who went last year, and so I'd like you to consider when that comes up, make notice to us that we can at least show up for a few minutes.
Absolutely. We have a lot of people graduating in June, so I will definitely give an invite out to everyone so that you can come attend a graduation. It was pretty inspiring to hear where our participants start and then where they end up at the end of the program. So yeah, definitely we'll do that.
So I've got a question. After they finish the drug court, I believe they are eligible for expungement, aren't they, if they successfully graduate? Is that correct?
That's correct. That was a new law that was enacted last year. If you are a graduate of a drug court or specialty court program, you are up for immediate expungement. Of course, you have to go through the process of that and pay all the costs that's incurred by expungement. But yeah, that is a great perk this last year to participate in drug court. It's a hard program. I think that that's a great benefit to people, is to be able to get an expungement immediately instead of waiting the 5 to 7 years that you normally have to wait.
So in your experience, would that be something that would help people prevent reoffending if they were able to get that a little easier, if the county was able to help with that somewhere? I'll be honest with you, I've been trying to work on this, and I have run into dead ends everywhere I've gone. I know I talked to the mayor of Leavenworth a couple of years back, and they've got an excellent program up there that the city and county come together with, and they've got volunteer attorneys in the area, and I would love to start something like that here. So if you've got any ideas, I would appreciate any input. But I'm curious to your thought, as you know, if you thought an expungement would help these people keep from reoffending, being as, you know, it's so hard if you've got a record to go out and find a job, especially in today's economy.
Right. I know of, I think we've had about 5 graduates so far that have taken advantage of that. Just because if your record's expunged, obviously you can get a better paying job. You know, your opportunities for employment increases greatly without those felonies on your record. So they were pretty excited to be able to do that right away.
You think that would be something worth pursuing, or you think it doesn't really matter?
So the expungement, you know, some of that's up to the DA, obviously. He's really a fan of drug court. So he definitely supports drug court graduates getting expunged. I think that would be probably a conversation with him. But yes, I think anytime that you probably get an expungement, that's a good deal for you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you for your consideration.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Okay, item 8A is the resolution providing for temporary moratorium on commercial solar energy project development. Randy or Patrick?
Commissioners, this is a moratorium proposal, a resolution for solar. Currently,
Sorry, there was somebody I think that just wanted to speak on this.
Yes, I've got them.
Okay, all right, perfect.
I'll be brief. I won't take, I think from my standpoint, it's fairly straightforward. Currently, Reno County does not have zoning regulations that deal with solar. And so right now, we are at the point where no one has applied for a specific conditional use permit. So before we get entangled in somebody who actually wanted to build a solar farm, the concept is to put a moratorium, send it back to Planning Commission for them to develop the rules of the road for, if there are any, for solar in Reno County by the end of the year. Then the Planning Commission's proposal would come to you guys to review and potentially adopt. And then in the meantime, if there was a company that wanted to do a solar program, they would have some knowledge and certainty as to what the rules are. I just want to take a step back broadly. You know, right now, we're at a point where you guys have what we call legislative authority on this issue, which means you're making rules for the whole county, broad policy decisions as to how to deal with this zoning regulation. When you have an adoption, you have zoning regulations, and someone specifically asks for a specific permit for a specific identifiable project, then the Planning Commission and the commissioners are using your administrative authority, and you're bound by the rules that are in place to determine if it's good or not. And what frequently, my experience, is that frequently people don't scrutinize the rules when they're being developed, but then when there's a specific project, they gets their attention and they really drill in. So now's the time to really work for the Planning Commission and for you guys to really decide what and how or if solar energy, commercial solar projects are going to happen in Reno County and how they're going to happen. And then once those rules are established, they'll be in place, and you guys will just have to scrutinize things and see if they check the boxes as they come in. And I should mention this would be so This resolution does not impact residential solar for people interested in that. This would just be for the commercial level of solar, that wouldn't happen at the end of the year. Randy and I talked, if somehow the Planning Commission doesn't have rules in place by the end of the year, if we run out of time, we would come back and ask you guys to extend the moratorium, but at this point, that we think that's enough time for them to come up with something. So those are my thoughts on it.
Thanks for the briefing on that. Jim Sherry's here with Ark Valley Electric Cooperative. Jim, did you have some comments?
Yeah, just was looking for clarification as far as how you guys would determine commercial sizing and.
Sorry, just for the record, say your name.
Oh, Jim Sherry from Ark Valley Electric, Director of Operations there. And so we currently do have a 1 megawatt solar farm attached to a substation in western Reno County.
Right. Well, this would be for new things. So, I mean, obviously you'd be grandfathered.
And then any additional projects in our future.
Well, that's
kind of where I'm looking at is how you're defining commercial versus anything that's produced within our system is injected back into our system for our members, as opposed to going on a wholesale market like Evergy would do and sell it out.
Frank, honestly, you're kind of highlighting the need for us to make some planning commission regulations because currently we don't have, right now, if it's attached to a residence, and I think I know what, right now I feel like we think we know what a residential solar project is, but that's exactly what we kind of need clarification on. Because as you know, it could be just someone on the roof of their house, or it could be these giant projects, and figuring out what's allowed and how much and all those things is what we really need them to dig in on.
Yeah, I'm assuming your proposal or your idea is to go after and understand how to deal with the larger projects that.
The Planning Commission and these guys will have to define what residential means so that it's clear. That'll be part of the process, and then make rules for how and if commercial larger projects go forward. So yeah, I would encourage you to talk to Mark Minochin at the Planning Commission about what your thoughts are and what your guys' needs are, so that as the Planning Commission's working on it, they know kind of your guys' perspective on stuff.
Okay,
So do you have something projected to be built in the next year?
We do. Actually, north of town, up east of the city of the Highlands, there's an area in there that we're basically going to replicate what we did at the Huntsville substation over at what we call our Sand Hill substation. And again, that power there is just a place for our members to help lower cost and demand costs in the future. Ark Valley Electric, we still believe energy is going to go higher, and it's just a good way to cut costs. So,
one thing I'll comment: when Ark Valley got the conditional use permit for the current solar farm, it did mention commercial at that time. I don't know if it'll change with regulations, but the commercial solar farm would be something that's sold. So, as you mentioned, go back into the Southwest Power Pool, separate from being for members, kind of like a residence. Yours is just for residents. You're not.
Correct.
You're selling, but you're selling to yourself.
Correct.
You're not selling it out to the market.
And have you applied for that?
right now, the project's just been identified. I've got the engineering done, and actually within this week, the zoning side of this will be taken care of.
So you're going to apply this week?
Yes. So that's why this is kind of.
I'm not familiar. How big of a footprint is that?
7 acres is what we've utilized, and that's a fenced in 7, so it's a little smaller footprint than that total.
Okay. I have a question.
Yes, sir.
I would say the big problem here is we haven't defined what commercial is. Mr. Partington has said what it was thought to be, but in talking to people, there are a lot of thoughts on what that definition should be. And that's where the hiccup comes in this whole thing is it could be that you're a co-op, which everybody's a member.
Yes, sir.
But you are selling it to members because not every member uses the same amount of electricity. So there's going to have to be a definition process big time for your sake, our sake, and anybody else's interest. And that's what we don't have right now.
Yeah,
at this point. and some other laws as the structures of how a business is structured might change the definition too. Co-op versus corporation, so on and so forth, LLC. So, because, you know, is as a co-op, is that an extension of my own personal, privately held stuff, or, you know, there's some legalities there that need to be addressed before we can do some things here.
Yeah, I mean, the idea of the moratorium is just to take a step back before we get multiple different ones coming through. And then is 7 acres large or not? You know, like, how does the public feel about 7 acres? Is that something they're okay? How's the planning commission deal with that? Is that too big versus 7 versus 100 acres versus that? You know, all these questions that are kind of bubbling up there. We just need to, the idea would be just to take a pause on it and figure out rules so that we can tell people like you exactly what the rules are in Reno County and you guys can follow them.
We got a problem though, because you've put a lot of money in this project, haven't you? Just thinking that there were no issues.
Yeah, correct. I mean, we're starting initial, like I said, the cost of the ground. This will be a 25-year, you know, initial outlay on this project that'll.
So what
again, I think there's, for size-wise also, but then intent of where this is intended to use at. I mean, everything produced is staying within that footprint, that substation in Reno County. It's not wholesale market.
What is an 8-month delay going to do to your, like, I mean, is that going to cost you a lot of money? Is that going to cost your members a lot of money? Or is this something that's okay, we'll figure it out?
And I think getting the policies in place shouldn't be too hard of a hurdle. It's just something new within Lee's County, every county's having to deal with.
They've been starting to work on it for a while now. We just don't know exactly how long the process takes. So the goal is to get it done by the end of the year.
Jim, do you know if that area that you're looking to develop is zoned today?
It is not.
No.
Correct.
So there's really not, I mean, you don't even have to file a permit today, do you?
I don't know. I don't think you guys do a CUP in that zone. So yeah. But
A CUP for an unzoned area?
I think they have it on the solar.
Yeah, out in the Huntsville area we did. Medora we had to, since it is a zoned area.
But with the moratorium, I mean, it would be for the whole county-wide.
I'll do a CUP in an unzoned area.
We appreciate when people do. I don't. That'd be a Mark question. I don't know for sure they have to. But I mean, that's why we want to take a step back and see if the rules are we going to let the unzoned portions just continue to. Are they going to have no regulations on solar in the unzoned, which is a possibility, but that's just what everyone needs to take a step back and decide.
I think Commissioner Vogler brought up a very good point with regard to the fact that there's quite a difference between a rural electric cooperative versus an F&G, which is investment, stock market defined. And I think that's something that they will have to talk about and come up with some answers, because you're using it for the betterment of hopefully the betterment of your own members, which own the co-op. And I think that's something that hadn't come up before.
A different set of laws apply.
Yeah, I mean, and I really hope, I really don't want to do anything to get in your way with this, because, me personally, I don't mind solar. I mean, I've talked to a lot of people about this, and I haven't really had anybody give me a reason why I should vote for a moratorium or to do any zoning other than, hey, we don't want to see it in our neighbor's yard. I mean, that's really what it's come down to with everybody I've talked to about this. But, heck, my neighbor put up a fence. Stuff happens, and your neighbors have the right to do with their property what they want, or at least they should. So, but you said if we do vote for this moratorium, it's not going to set you guys back, or what?
Timeline, yeah, absolutely will set us back, but it's not a hurdle we can't overcome. And I think that area that I'm looking at right now, north of Highlands, it is a zoned area.
Maybe just looking to see, it depends where you're at, if you're in somebody else's 3 mile or if you're in the county. And stuff.
Yeah, most of
there's
that's zoned up there.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes more sense. Well, let's do this in 2 steps. I think there's 2 primary questions. One is, do you generally support this resolution? Do you see any need to change it? 2 is there's been a question raised today whether, this should impact, local investment that's already in progress. So I think we should do the first question, which is like, do you support this at all? Do you want any changes to it? And then we can address the particular issue raised.
Support the resolution or
Yeah.
support letting them go forth with their
Well,
project?
I would suggest we look at the resolution first, because if there's a majority that says we don't even want to do it, that answers this question just as easy as. So let's do you support the resolution in its current form? Do you want to see changes?
Are you looking for a motion?
Yeah, that might be a good way to start it, and it may.
We'll further discussion like we do. Well, I would move that we do as staff has suggested and have this temporary moratorium on commercial.
Commissioner Bogner moves.
I would second that, but
Commissioner Parks seconds.
also say that we don't want to put any undue burdens on you folks as
Oh, for
well in doing that. But I think there's so many loopholes out there that we're looking at for things that could go bad.
Oh,
We
absolutely.
want to make sure they don't happen. And I personally say I'd support what you're doing for the community, for your cooperatives and that kind of stuff too. I think that's a great thing, but I think that the underpinning tone, if I'm not speaking out of school here in the county, is they don't want to see a 5,000 acre solar farm that's a big corporation that comes in, grabs a bunch of grants.
That's what I'm assuming the intent.
So that's going to have to be defined as we go.
Okay, there's motion on table second.
Maybe I spoke out of turn.
Well, that may be, Commissioner Parks, that may be one of the issues. I mean, for where I sit is just kind of the attorney. I think that, clearly defined rules going forward will help everybody, even his project, because then he'll know exactly what he's supposed to be doing, and then and it will make us, even if we take a step back for 8 months, it will make the process better afterwards, to just kind of clarify.
I think so too.
That's my perspective.
I support this for the whole county as it's written. Because basically there's 2 parts that we have to deal with on all of these. One is the CPU to start with under the regulations, and then the second part is a development agreement. And those 2 have to be done before something will come in. And I personally think, I wish, and I would suggest that they look at this, is they look at having a development agreement at the same time that they do the CPU. Because things can go awry later on with a development agreement. Push. And so if we had those before they spent a ton of money on everything, that they know what the development agreement is with regard to the use of roads, fencing, all that other. There are several things that have to be taken into account depending upon the location of a project. And that's drainage for one thing. There's the agrivoltaic portion of it that needs to be considered. And there's several things in this that need to have some rules and regulations on to benefit both parties.
I will vote for it if you're saying that this will not impact you in a negative way long-term.
No, should be fine.
Because I think we do need some time to develop rules and things like that, so I think that's a wise course of action.
Yeah.
But my concern is I don't want you guys to lose a bunch of money over this moratorium today.
So it sounds like we got consensus. I'm really, I think I support the resolution. I'm really on the fence on any significant new regulation. We talk talk a lot about property rights. You know, I think you should put this up against our conversation about, you know, fire mitigation, right? And this is a solar field that somebody may not want to look at, as you say, and we're getting ready to regulate it when we have, you know, other questions in front of us, whether we want to regulate what people can do with their property that may kill a firefighter. And I just want to bring that up, that this is really no different in my opinion. I agree with Commissioner Whitesole. I mean, this is, you know, they stand this tall and you can put a fence around it, and who's are we to define, you know, people's property rights and who they can lease their property to? I think there's a lot of gray area there, and it's a slippery slope, and if we're looking out for the good of the community, I can get involved. I can get behind this, but I just want to point out that there's other matters that we're looking at, the safety and welfare of our community, that are much less aesthetic in nature and much more related to the life and safety of our people. And so I'm sorry to use this as the example for our fire mitigation conversation, but I think it's a good point to raise. And so I'm okay with this. I think I would also be okay if you put a hole in there for your permit that's going in this week. But if you can wait, I think I agree with the consensus here that I think the Planning Commission's going to pull their hair out if we tell them to do this and then you put your CUP in and we make them do both at the same time, because they're going to be fighting conflicting conversations. And so getting it in, we'll get to define how these rules are made, and I'm, you know, my personal opinion is they need to be streamlined and simple and not burdensome to property rights. Yeah, Randy?
Yeah, well, it's kind of related to the resolution. The resolution is countywide for the moratorium. When you kind of wait for the Planning Commission to adopt or recommend regulations, are those to be countywide or just the zoned areas? Because I think the Planning Commission will want to know that. And I believe for this applicant, if it's not zoned and you're only wanting regulations for the zoned areas, it doesn't have an impact on him, other than the moratorium is countywide until you know more.
I might start just because of a little bit of experience from our work in wind, and wind did not extend to the unzoned areas, did it?
Yeah, you guys finally, well, no, you have regulations that are countywide, but the ban on wind is only the zoned areas.
That was developed so that those outside the zoned areas, if you remember, could have a say whether they yay or nay.
Right.
And I think that was the reason for that special.
I think the commission and staff should avoid that recommendation and just let us decide whether it's, you know, if the commission decides reasonable regulation for solar, the Planning Commission, this commission can decide whether to apply it across the county or just in zoned areas. I don't think we need to burden them with that.
I was just going to add, you know, since this came to light, which I didn't know about, that they were this close, but this is good. I hope you talk to the Planning Commission just about how your projects work and what needs you guys would have so that they can take into consideration what something like that looks like when they're going forward.
Yeah.
And I will say that you know, just from my opinion with this, I think my only objection would be is if it raises the cost of electricity to our citizens, because it's my understanding that the wind farms that they were looking at, the way they sell the energy and then buy it back, it would actually raise the cost of electricity to our citizens. And so if there's a solar farm that does that, where it actually raises the cost of electricity, I would not be for that. But but as far as the planning commission goes, I think that would be my input.
I think that's some of the same things I think it should be on whole county, the regs.
Can I put you on the spot for a second?
Yeah.
That starts to get involved in regulating utility, and they run a business, and why should we tell them how to run their business?
Well, but if it's something the way it's sold, and if it's something that's costing the citizens of the county money to put it in there, then I think that is our business, because if we're talking about higher, more electricity available, but it's at a higher cost, I don't think that's a good thing for the citizens of the county. So they need to find a way to keep costs the same or lower them for the county if it's something they're going to, or for the citizens if it's something they're going to make money off of, in my opinion.
Okay, it seems like there's consensus to approve. There's no amendments being offered, and it's been properly discussed, so roll call, please.
Commissioner Hurst,
Yes.
Commissioner Parks,
Yes.
Commissioner Vogner,
Yes.
Commissioner Weitzel,
Yes.
Commissioner Friesen.
Yes. Jim, thank you for being here today. I think, as Patrick said, we want to work with Ark Valley. Please engage the Planning Commission. You'll have a seat at the table, I'm sure. I'm sure they'll want to hear from you. We want to accommodate your work. Thank you, gentlemen.
If I might make a comment. I think that the Ark Valley Co-op is very rural. They do not have the options of large energy users. It's all primarily residences, small businesses, and where they don't have that advantage of being in a town who has a lot of users. And they've got a lot of lines to maintain. And they're a little disadvantaged, I think, from the standpoint of the amount of people they can sell electricity. So something we want to work with.
Okay, items 8, B, C, and D are all kind of together. Randy Regeer's here. These have been on the consent agenda before, and we've pulled them off. So the commission's been briefed through your written documentation, so you can be briefed as well.
I certainly will. Again, Randy Regeer, Director of Reno County Community Corrections. Just to give you an overall picture of these 3 grants, this is state general fund money that is filtered through the Kansas Department of Corrections in the form of grants to Reno County to serve the people with community corrections through these grants. I won't go into a lot of great detail on this first one. You can kind of see from our budget and just a little bit of the outline. But again, we're supervising people on felony supervision in the community. So if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer those.
Questions on that item?
We're just okaying a grant that you applied for and you already.
Correct. This is approving application to apply for this grant. It's already been filtered through our advisory boards, and so we just need your approval as well.
This is one of the ways the state distributes its funding is through this grant program. So,
yes, sir.
Must have done well on your report because there's no questions.
Great.
So,
I'll make a motion to approve Do we approve them one at a time, or can I make a motion to approve all three?
I think we could do them together.
I'll make a motion to approve items 8, B, C, and D as presented by staff.
Motion to approve B, C, and D. Commissioner Weitzel, is there a second? By Commissioner Bogner. Any other discussion on these items?
I appreciate what you guys are doing, I really do.
Thank you.
Hearing none, roll call, please.
Commissioner Hurst.
Yes.
Commissioner Parks.
Yes.
Commissioner Bogner.
Yes.
Commissioner Weitzel.
Yes.
Commissioner Friesen.
Yes.
Thank you, commissioners.
That took 2 minutes, but you had to wait an hour and a half.
Just waste him up.
Item 9A.
I have, so I'm using the wrong mouse here. Monthly department reports are in the packet. This is for aging, public transportation, appraiser, automotive, communications, community corrections, the DA, emergency management, and the health department. Any questions on anything in the reports? Okay, if there's no questions there, I wanted to remind everyone, I put it in my weekly report to you, but Career Quest Day is this Thursday. So we have some 6th graders coming through. I think about 153 6th graders will be coming through. And there's a, I guess a set times between 9 and 9:30 and then 9:45 and 10:15 where it's identified as commission. It'll be in this room. Patrick will be able to speak. I'll also be able to speak, even though we're not commissioners, but then was hoping to get 1 or 2 commissioners to possibly come speak.
This Thursday.
Thursday of this week.
Need me to bring the cotton candy machine?
Yeah. That'd be
Yeah, I can do that.
There's
We
several,
want to impress 6th graders in a positive manner.
several groups coming through different times, right, for us?
Right, so we have Central Christian, South Hutch Elementary School, Nickerson Elementary School, and Haven Elementary School coming through here.
Starting at 9:30?
9 o'clock.
9 to what?
9 to 10:15, 10:30. So, yeah, a couple of you, or you guys can do it in shifts if you want, just so we don't have a public meeting, but it's,
Yeah, I'll plan on being there.
okay, great.
I'll decide to plan on it, but I can step back when somebody else is in for a while. So.
We can,
Go ahead.
well, we can be in different rooms, because you're not talking about county business, you're talking about what it's like to be a commissioner as a profession. We'll just move you to different areas of the courthouse.
We could just put a note out.
True.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You show up.
Yeah, okay.
I just have Sandra put a note out. The commission may be in quorum for that event. Oh, you're right
Put
there.
the notification out.
Okay.
Thank you. Also wanted to, I emailed the city manager of Hutchinson yesterday talking about a joint meeting. We had one in December, and I know that both governing bodies wanted to have these on a regular basis. So it would be the county's turn to host. Wanted to see if one of the meetings in May or June works for you guys, and we can then offer that out to the city council to see if it works for them. We meet on, separate from the May 30th, there's a May 30th special session, but May 29th or 9th and the 23rd, and then June 13 and 27. If you guys could let me know any of those days work, or if there's any that don't work. They're normal.
Will this be after the normal meeting, or?
Yes, we would have the county commission meeting like what we're having today, take a break, and probably 11:30 to 1:30 have the joint session and provide lunch. So you guys can have food with the city council and then have discussions about various topics.
Can you email those dates out?
Yes.
I was gonna propose something as an item. If we could, I think we could try to get done by 11. And I'd like like to propose that we take a field trip to Prairie Hills Middle School area and have a conversation about much less the intersection, which is kind of an ongoing issue, but the road there has been brought up time and time again, the seal. It's a very narrow road. It's not designed for children or bus traffic, and it's a township road. It's very confusing. It's a township road. Park Township, Park City. Park Township, Park City. I think the city doesn't quite know what to do. The township's kind of probably over their head on that. And I think the three of us need to get together with the school and have a conversation about it. Would you be interested in having that there? Having lunch at the school? I mean, there's always things to talk about, and we can talk about other things with the city, but next time you're on 30th by Prairie Hills, go down Lucille and see if you think that's a proper road for a large school like that.
But it's really not in our jurisdiction, so
It's, well,
as long as it's a township road, yeah,
I think
or a city.
I think part of the problem why it's not getting addressed is the township probably is not equipped to deal
Fund-wise, yeah.
with such a situation. And some agency needs to take a leadership role in trying to bring everybody together to resolve it. Even if we don't have full jurisdiction, I think I've gotten multiple, it's in my district, and I've gotten multiple requests of like, hey, this is not a safe road, and it's really not. I don't feel like the response of, it's a county township road, sorry, we're not going to do anything is sufficient given the impact and the safety concerns with the school district.
There could be a method to do that, and I think that is if the parties involved on that street, that road, do a benefit district and charge people on each side of that road for reconstruction, for paving, or whatever. That's a pretty simple method, I believe.
Yeah, that would be one solution.
Because it's not something county-wide, but I see what Daniel's saying, there's, nothing else, just what happened here. There is a method, is that worth floating? Trying. Pay for what housing additions do it, it's common practice. Those that benefit pay.
Well, is that something our people could help with as far as their expertise in?
Yeah, I'm sure Public Works could give their opinion. As Commissioner Hurst mentioned, there's potential to do a development district or a benefit district to improve that. I think just bringing the parties together to hey, we need to do something here, I think would be helpful. Again, it doesn't have to be the entire agenda of the meeting, but if we could go out there and
yeah.
That
It's
one
always
you want with
easier
the
when you
city?
visualize it.
With the city council also?
I mean, it's in the city limits.
Because the east side is City of Hutchinson, the west side of that road is KPNL's power plant.
It's always better if you visualize something.
I have no idea what you guys are talking about, so.
I've driven the road how many times and I'm not clicking. Well, it's probably a pretty good idea.
Has the attendance went up over the years, has made it that much more congested, or is it just ever since this traffic light got taken out, people are dizzy? I guess I'm asking just to know.
So I went to Prairie Hills, and that road's been like that since I went there
Right.
20 years ago or whatever.
And how many
25.
more students are going now?
Well, they funnel every single student through there because it's the middle school. And they have a huge amount of bus traffic, and they have cross-country across the road. And if you look at how narrow that road is, I mean, it's
I don't have a problem
township
going and
road.
looking, I think that's a good idea, but I'm just saying as the populace of the school went up, that there's that much more traffic. Because it didn't seem to be a contention years ago when they built it.
I think
Even though
I
they
think
were
it's
funneling all the
just-
students.
I think it's become more of a topic, and
Well, just probably more traffic altogether as everything expands, that too, but we'll find out more when we get there and visualize it. As I remember it, it's pretty narrow blacktop.
It is.
And, so how are you gonna change it? Are you gonna widen the thing? You'll have to get land to do that.
Oh, that's our situation here, jurisdictional wise. I think maybe
Well, that's
if we
what
can
I'm
put them
getting.
together, but
well,
I'm sure they've tried to get together before, haven't they?
well, my point is that every time this comes up, every governing body says this is not my problem, and it never gets resolved, and I'm thinking, well, if we're having a joint meeting somewhere, why don't we take 30 minutes of the meeting, go look at it, say, hey, we can work together, we'll, county public works can provide at least some insight and knowledge, and I mean, they know exactly the situation. The school would be thankful for us giving them some attention on the issue, and we can talk about other things too.
At this point, we're not spending any money, so it's just a little time to check into it.
Yeah, come a little closer to Bueller.
I know you are. You hear more there.
You hear more than
You
what?
hear more than we do.
So, if you're accommodating that, we'll try to coordinate something. Appreciate the leeway there. Thank you. Is that all you had?
Yes, that's all I had.
Commissioner reports. Anybody want to start over? Commissioner Bogner, got anything today?
Nothing too big.
I just think moving into budgeting, I've got a lot of concerns. I'm just gonna throw this out here at the end for us to think about and mull around. I know we're gonna see a lot of requests. I know we're gonna see a lot of figures for budgeting. I've seen it before, but I think we need to be mindful of where we're at. I don't care whether we have enough tax base to pay extras and things. I think we have to go into it with the mindset of the constituents we work for. And they are, I think, typical. The bond issue that failed is probably a typical picture of how they feel right now. And I think we need to be extremely cautious about spending extra money that we don't need to, especially with the economy the way it is. I don't think we're near at the precipice of what's going to happen yet, honestly. And don't set ourselves up for any kind of a fall in the future. I understand grants and those kinds of things, but I think I just want to say my piece today that I think we need to look for ways. We've all made comments about how we want to back things up and make things a little more streamlined. We'd love to see taxes go down. And when I look at outside agencies, for an example, and I think they all do good work. I'm not certainly negating what they do, and we've heard a couple of them here today. But I know I've heard from people, not just in my district, but across the county, they don't want to see us do that kind of stuff anymore. And so we have to be extremely cautious moving forward about what we do with the money that's their money. And so that's just kind of my piece today. I hope we move in with a mindset that direction this year. I've listened to the city talk the other night and present some things that they really have that same mindset. They want to try to back things up a little bit. They want to get things to where people have some extra money. They don't want to spend money they're not supposed to. I think it'd be great if the city and the county eventually, speaking out of turn here probably, get together, get their heads together and see if there's a way to back taxes up just a little bit. I think it's possible. I've seen it happen in several places in the country already. It didn't hurt the economy there, And if you want growth, you get taxes down and you get out of the way. And that's where it's gonna come from. You can't pay an organization to stimulate growth. It's never happened in history. It's not gonna happen now. And so that's my piece, and I'm gonna leave it at that. I hope that we pray intently and think about going into the budget future year with that in mind, that we find every possible way to squeeze pennies and see if we can, in fact, keep, maybe not just a neutral revenue budget. I'd like to see it back up. I really would. I think it's possible to do that. But it's gonna take cuts. It's gonna take some thick skin to do that. All right, I'll shut up now.
Sure.
I'd like some future conversations or thoughts from the commission with regards to sending out their thoughts about sending out an RFP for publications on legal to all county newspapers. Since the legislature, the lobbyists turned down that bill, that we could have done something instead of just putting it on the website and saved us quite a bit of money a year. And so I wondered if the competition out there might stress, maybe it won't, but we can still do put our legals still on the website, but maybe give an option to maybe bring that cost down and see if it wouldn't happen. Maybe it won't. The other thing is next Tuesday on April 18th, if my recollection is correct, there is a fundraiser for the Honor Flight out at Applebee's that day. And if you're familiar with the Honor Flight, that takes our veterans to Washington, D.C. Without them getting charged anything for that. So I think it's a very worthwhile project, and so that's all I had.
I think maybe you could work with Sandra on a press release on
On the Honor Flight?
Yeah, if there isn't one already.
Got it?
Yep.
Okay, please do.
You could put a quote in there. I just, real quick, I was gonna comment on Commissioner Hurt's first point of the legal notifications, because we chatted a few times during that, and I ended up calling some folks in Topeka, and we were kind of monitoring that bill, and it was making its way through, and then it just did. And I called and asked, and there's a special interest, Johnson County, there's a publication owner that just does legal publications for all of Johnson County. And he has donated across the board to a number of legislators, and the entire state and all the counties were impacted based on the interests of the profits of one newspaper in Johnson County. So you might want to complain to our local legislators. I definitely complained to them, and
Well, it's actually one of our local legislators that got that whole deal started. All of a sudden he was getting support from the education people, and he's like, "Man, what am I doing here?
Yeah.
You know what?" And they're in the same boat that we are, and you have to pay all this money to these newspapers for things we can just put on the website. So
it's like one of the most no-brainer items you could do, and it's you can't but call it special interest when it fails, and so it's really disappointing that happened. But your point about an RFP, I think everyone would support that. So I think there's consensus, Randy, to bring an RFP back to the commission. It's a good idea, Commissioner Hurst. Commissioner Weitzel?
So I went to a movie the health department put on last Friday, I believe it was, the first day, talking about drug addiction, and I'm blessed that I don't have anybody directly impacted by that. I know that's a huge problem in the county and something I'm going to start trying to be a solution for. And so I want to thank the health department for putting that on. It was an excellent movie. It was an excellent night. And yeah, I appreciate that. And then I'm sure all of you guys have gotten requests for meetings with different groups here in the county. And I really mulled this over, but Randy, I think I'm in agreement with you. These groups that are, raising money from their members or raising money from different things, I really don't see that county money belongs there, because basically what we're saying is, we're going to charge our local residents for things that may benefit the county, but it's not benefiting them. And so, like, for example, the economic development, the Rise Up Reno, the different groups like that. So I think we really need to look at these groups carefully, and is this money that should be coming from taxpayers? They should be raising themselves through other means, through their members, through grants, through things that aren't making us take money from, I don't know, the old couple that lives next to me, or the single mom that lives behind me, because they own their home, and we're saying, okay, well, we're going to take this money from you and give it to them. I mean, I think I've come to the conclusion that's not the best way to spend our money. The other thing that has really annoyed me, and I'm really excited to visit with the city about this and see their thoughts, is a lot of these groups are going to both the city and the county, and every single one of them I've asked, well, why is it that way? Because I mean, my district's exclusively in the city, and so what's happened is people are paying property taxes in the city to support these groups. They're also paying property taxes for the county to support these groups. And so they're essentially double dipping, and I asked them, and they're like, well, why aren't you doing the same things in like Haven or some of these other cities in the county? And they're like, well, they don't have the funds to support it. Hutchinson wouldn't have the funds to support it either if they would tax their citizens less. So I think it's I think there's a lot of double dipping going on, because they feel like the money's there, and we've got two different boards that are controlling basically the same money from the same people. And so I've given that a lot of thought, and yes, it's going to be very, very difficult to convince me to approve some of those monies when the budget comes forward. And I wanted to be upfront about that and honest with my constituents about that and about my thought process there. If anybody's got any new information, give me a call. My cell phone's on the website. I'm more than happy to talk to anybody about that. And that's really all I've got.
Commissioner Bogner?
Well, this brought up some questions I did have. Didn't realize, thought maybe this wasn't the place to talk about them, but as was said earlier in our meeting, funds from taxing alcohol and various things. From what I read, some of these state mandated, the state's collecting the monies we get back from state must be spent in certain areas. Well, when I was reading that, my first thought was, well, the state hasn't been sending us that money. So are we required to put it in our budget and spend it? Or where I went to school, 0 times whatever percent you put on it for all these organizations is 0. Do we actually have the funds? If we don't have the funds from the state, their mandate is null and void, because you haven't given us our funds back. So are we as a county taxing our citizens a second time to give these organizations that money when they've already been taxed once? It's just the state has decided they're not sending that money back. So kind of your double dipping deal. I don't know how it all works, but I'd sure have to get a little better clarification on if we're making up that difference to keep that in our budget, or do we just give what we think was personally should be given out of Reno County or not be given out of Reno County? I woke up in the middle of the night the other night and I got to thinking, well, is that right? Am I maybe I misread what the laws that were quoted are. I might need some clarification here.
There are some, there is some property tax money that the state doesn't send back that they were supposed to, but the special alcohol tax they have been sending back. That's one that's it's collected as a special sales tax, and then that money we do have. So, and it's earmarked for, a portion of it's earmarked for Parks and Rec, and a portion of it has to be spent on mental health and addiction services. And that's so when it comes to those things, you're spending dollars you actually have gotten back from the state.
Okay, that's the clarification I needed. We're all gonna need to make a decent decision.
So, I might suggest that, one thing we did last year, Randy, I don't know how early you did it, but you kind of came to us and said, okay, where do you want to be total? You want to do revenue neutral, you want to be to zero mill levy, you want to go down 5%. I think last year we said try to go down 5% total taxes. You want to do that again? Because it seems like there's enough,
Yeah, I think
if you're not even rowing in the right direction, it's going to be a big headache for you.
right. I think it would be good to have a study session or maybe at the end of some meeting, time to set aside and find out your priorities, where you want the budget, want to see a budget, and then if it is a reduction in the mill levy, or not mill levy, reduction in the revenues that we've received, you want to see those cuts before it comes to you. Is it take out all our cash? Is it capital projects? Or, but the majority of the budget is either capital or personnel.
I'm just thinking if we can establish hey, we want to cut the budget by X percentage, then you can chop some wood for us before it comes back to us. So we'll try to get that on the agenda early. So Randy's giving staff good guidance on how to do it, because we could be in the weeds for weeks.
And he's got a nice head of hair. I don't want to see him look like I did.
Okay. So,
My only other closing comment, did you donate your beard to anybody?
No, I did not. That's right down fast.
So we have the health department next. I prefer to conclude by noon. I don't know if that's possible or what they got planned, but we'll take a 5-minute break and then come back. If the rest of the commission wants to stay for the day, they can.
start with introductions. Carla Nichols, Director of Public Health.
Karen Smith, Assistant Director of Clinical Services. Megan Gotcha, Assistant Director for Community Health. Darcy Basie, Environmental Supervisor.
So what you guys have asked for is, I'll go back to just the summary, just like a study session of our strategic direction. Biggest thing that we want to focus on is the development of our strategic plan was formed by an internal process assessment of the successes and emerging issues, the county's 2022 community health assessment, and its community health rankings. In addition, a series of 4 focus groups was facilitated to gather input from staff and community stakeholders, and staff evaluated the department's recent successes and emerging issues. So, and then also us in communication with the county administrator would also like to provide you with an update on process improvement projects that we have completed and are completing for childcare licensing and environmental health. So I know you would like us to be brief. So I'm not sure where you would like for me to start, or questions that you have, or if you want me to go through the complete strategic plan.
Well, I want to be respectful of your work as well. So if you wanted to present, you could, or, you know, maybe present what you have, and you can be brief. Because for whatever reason, well, you guys have a very vast set of things that you do for the county, and so sometimes that leads into lots of questions, and so I think every commissioner may have some questions for you, so maybe if we could leave at least half of it for that, maybe that would be a way to do it. Is that possible?
Yes. And we can make it interactive also. You can ask questions as we go.
Okay.
We can keep it very informal. I'm sure that you guys have read through this whole document. Any questions on the document? Any piercing questions in reading the document? Biggest thing is the introduction. So in early 2021 and early 2022, and late 2021, the Reno County leadership developed a strategic plan for the entire county organizations, including the health department. Building on that work, the Reno County Health Department subsequently embarked on its own strategic planning process, in part to fulfill the requirements to maintain its accreditation achieved in February of 2021. So this builds upon the county plan. So that is why our mission and our values are the same as the county's. As a department of the county, we want to make sure that we are one with the county, and we are following the county's leadership and direction on our leadership also. We go through the role of the health department. So then the local health department, of course, the role of the local health department does change over time to meet the changes and needs of the population. And probably the paragraph above that is the most important one, that under Kansas law, health departments report to the Board of Local Health, which of course is our Reno County Commissioners. So that's why in part of this process, if you remember back in late 2022, we did come to you guys for a strategic planning session. And part of that session was to present you guys with the information that we received from the county health assessment, the community health assessment, and the community health rankings, and then get your input also to then craft this strategic plan. So the input from the county commissioners was received to then craft the strategic plan in moving forward. We did go through the 10 essentials of the public health services. And then we, in our environmental scan, so you and the community do know that their information, your constituents' information does matter, and that's what fed into a lot of this information for our strategic plan through that community health assessment. The community health assessment, there was 3 overall concerns that they wanted us to focus on in the health department: substance misuse, child care, and mental health. We also looked through the county health rankings, health factors. Then the biggest thing was as far as the focus groups. It was information in the focus groups that we received that then helped us kind of have more of a specific voice in those health concerns, what we needed to do, and listening to them on how we can improve our services in Reno County. There was consensus among community focus group participants that the breadth of services provided by the health department was not commonly known, whether by them or the public at large. Participants who were more directly involved in the health department, such as our medical directors or advisory board members, were more familiar with our services, but indicate that they were consistently learning more. And with rare exception, that both the focus group participants were complimentary of our services and with which they were familiar. And staff indicated that a strong services were with WIC, our Women, Infant, and Children program. A desire to be flexible and meet the community needs and to provide outstanding customer service. So we're going to go down to, we've got the role of the health department, we've got communication. I'm sure you guys also, you can see that we did have in each area, so we have different areas in the health department, our successes and emerging issues that we did discuss, administrative, financial, clinical, women, infant, and children, health education programs, environmental health, licensed childcare, and preparedness. So from all of the information and with the community information and with the Reno County information for our mission and vision and values, we then developed key performance areas and strategic priorities. So 1 is communication, 2 is community enrichment and collaboration for the health department, and 3 is employee support. So within each of those, of course, are goals stated. So the very first one that we learned is, as far as communication, we need to do better on telling the story about health in the community. So the goal is to develop a comprehensive communication plan that promotes the role of public health in Reno County. 2 is use data to communicate public health needs and progress in meeting those needs. Goal 3 is to be an advocate at the local, regional, and state levels for public health generally and for improved public health in Reno County. Goal 4 would be identify internal and external partners as champions of public health. The second key performance or priority area would be community engagement and collaboration for the health department, to use data to convene and lead programs for emerging health issues. Goal 1 is continue to develop collaborative efforts with community partners to address emerging health issues. Goal 2 is to identify ways to go where the need is, evaluating, including evaluating and implementing of a mobile unit. Goal 3 is evaluating options to improve current and construct a new physical space. And goal 4 is improve health outcomes. Then the third key performance area is employee support, build and maintain a strong organizational infrastructure for public health. Goal 1 would be to recruit and retain quality employees, adjusting to the changing needs of the workforce while maintaining a high level of service to the public. And goal 2 is establish a professional development plan. So that from this information, then we look at implementation. So the health department should identify objectives for each of the priority goals. In other words, what actions are necessary to achieve the priority goals, in what time frame they should be achieved, and by whom. In addition, departmental plans should align with the overarching plan. The plan should be used as a guide for all actions. Implementing the plan will require necessary funding as determined in the annual budgeting process. As well, linking staff work and goals to the strategic priorities not only moves toward those priorities being realized, but also helps staff to come together around common goals. So with that strategic plan, any questions on any of that information that we can help address or identify or clarify for you?
That was a lot.
It is a lot, and there was a lot of community input and a lot of information from your constituents that led to the development of this plan. We do need this plan. We do work with the hospital every 3 to 5 years for the creation of the community health assessment, but we also need to have a community plan for our continued public health accreditation board.
Well, you know my thoughts on strategic plans, and admitted to Randy a few times, and I think we talked about them in the meeting, how it feels like when we go through all this work, we get all this stakeholder input, and you write the nice report, and then it gets filed in a file cabinet, and everybody just keeps going on because they're so busy and they don't really have time to focus on strategy because they're just trying to survive. Is that a reality in the health department? Do you guys have time to actually do things besides try to keep your head above water?
this helps us keep our head above water. It helps give us that focus and it gives us that direction. Having these goals, like we said, drives our daily work. It helps staff to come together around common goals. So this is the focus of our meetings, of our management meetings, as far as, how can we get to this? Just like we said, as part of implementation, is if these are the goals that the county wants and the constituents, the Reno County residents wants us to follow, wants us to achieve, then it's putting objectives in what we do on a daily basis to help accomplish that and improve the health of the community, to help us on our mission and vision. So it goes back to that mission and vision. I mean, our vision is for Reno County residents are living long and healthy lives. So in order to do that, we have to focus on the health department to help others achieve that.
Tell me your top 3 priorities.
Child care, substance misuse, mental health.
Okay, good, got that. So, one thing that came out of the meeting we had in, what was it, November? Thank you, bless you. Commissioner Weitzel wasn't there. But we said, man, it feels like you're doing too much. You gotta narrow it down. Maybe stop doing some stuff. Like, do you have a stop-do list in here?
So even if you go to my monthly report, if you go to my monthly report on a monthly basis, I outline, it's not gonna be on this, I've actually got it on mine. I actually look at every area that we focus on in the health department. You know, environmental health. It's kind of important to have clean air, clean water. You look at women, infant, and children and the services that we provide that they're not getting through other services. You look at the clinical services that we provide for, Hep A in the community to help that decrease. We look at. So we continue to look at areas. Now, we did have an area that we did reduce. We were looking at our services and we were declining on our Can Be Healthies and our well child checks. So we did have a mid-level provider that Karen visits with a lot monthly, and kind of looked at the services to see if it was one, we had a declining population when it comes to babies. And a lot of that population could be served by other clinics in town, whether that was Prairie Star or Hutch Clinic or any other clinics in town. And they weren't really coming to the health department because we were seeing a decline. We have discontinued that service in the health department. So we constantly look at need and services and what is needed and see if there's a way that we can reduce services. So that's ongoing. That's not just something you put somewhere. It's a continual assessment on, what is needed in the community and where are those services at.
Well, okay, well, that's fair. It's just like your point of like, we want clean air and clean water. There's a lot of people working on that. Like if we can focus on what we can actually impact and what's the objective of the health board here and your recommendations, that would be good. But I'll stop. I know there's a lot of other questions.
Well, an example of that might be this, and I don't know in depth enough about what you're doing, but just currently, the Pregnancy Crisis Center added in their repertoire to look at social diseases and some other stuff here in the community. Prairie Star currently does that at a real reduced rate for people, some of the health services that they want to provide beyond just the sonograms and the counseling. And I appreciate what they do greatly, but I know that we do some of those services too. That may just be one small thing that we can look at. And your example, Daniel, is that where do we fit in the scheme of the other clinics? And I think some of the decline is, I have talked to the administrator there. They offer a greatly reduced service to people, and they see hundreds of people on a daily basis as it come through there. But they're seeing some declines because of some of the other places. I mean, is some of those areas, unless I'm speaking wrong, is some of those areas in an overlap something that we need to continue to provide when there's people doing it at a reduced rate in the community? I mean,
So I think what you're talking about
And so we don't want to be a duplication of services, and we don't want to be in competition
Well, I
for
mean, if we're
anybody.
required to do that, but absolutely, why would we continue to do something that's offered in the community? We're
Right,
here to
and-
take a gap up, but that's not a gap.
Well, but it kind of is. So we are a safety net. So we have a mid-level who focuses on women's health care, where Prairie Star doesn't have an OBGYN there. And that would be the FQHC here in Reno County. So we do refer to them if we get to a point, but we have to use the OBGYNs at the Hutchinson Clinic, who are here in town, for our prenatal program, which is the maternal child health program. So we get funds for that program to look at maternal child health. So that's pregnant women before, during, and after postpartum. So we have funding for that, and then we have a mid-level that works part-time to see those pregnant patients.
But I'm not just talking about the pregnancy side of it. They're also offering other programs that I know that the other clinics are offering now. And it's a kind of a redundancy to me that even that they done that, where it's offered by the health department and both clinics and now them. And I'm going, if there's 3 other agencies providing some of that, that's just a small example of, do we need to continue to do that? I think that's part of the, am I wrong if that being part of the question? Because that's kind of what I've wondered.
Yeah, that's actually the first thing I wrote down was talking about duplication of services, and this is not y'all. I've talked to with the Department of Aging, with several different departments. I really don't want government to be in competition with local businesses, because government's going to always win because we take money from the taxpayers to pay for it.
And we truly are seeing those patients that are underserved and usually have no insurance. So that's what we do. So we see them quite a bit. And then the STIs, we also have a 340B program that works to cover that, the medications. If you have an STI, then that medication is covered for them. So they would be in a hardship to go get that service somewhere else.
We also do not want duplication. So we try to look at what areas that we can assist in. I think we're going to talk about health ed and then going to SAC.
Our health education department currently goes to the Substance Abuse Center of Kansas to do regular education services around STIs, which is sexually transmitted infections. And then they also do education around substance misuse and various other health issues. What we're seeing is, because of the efforts of health education, is that wraparound is that those individuals, many of them live in Oxford houses, so they're coming back to the health department. They're communicating with their constituents in the Oxford houses and within the community, and where they live, learn, work, and play. They're coming back to the health department and getting tested for STIs. So we're seeing an increase of individuals at the health department and stopping that, so that we don't have a public health emergency with an STI or some other communicable disease, which is the role of public health, is to stop those communicable diseases within our community.
Do we have meetings with the other providers here in town saying, hey, this is what we're doing, what are you guys doing? And to see, I'm just asking, I don't know, do we meet with people like
we have an OBGYN that comes to the health department monthly. So we're constantly meeting with them. And then we have our advisory board for the medical, and we meet with them on a monthly basis as well. Oh, we've also have nursing leadership. So we've created that program. So all of the nurses that are in leadership positions have been invited to the table, so we can speak to them about any of the issues and concerns and things that are working well within the community, so that we have those relationships in place as well.
Do you think it would be worth meeting with, like, say, the people at, the leadership at Hutch Clinic and Prairie Star and the hospital, on a regular basis, maybe a couple times a year, to just look at services everybody's offering and saying, hey, if we were to get out of this area, then you guys would need to step up here or something. Would that be something that would even be beneficial, you think?
It probably would not.
All this was put together with surveys from people who have used your facilities, right, or your services?
The community health, the needs assessment is in the community. So it's from your constituents out in the community. We actually take.
But I noticed that some of the stuff like environmental health was through the information on how they felt they were treated and whether things, those types of things were done by survey. Am I getting it through my head that most of these assessments or what's going on in the community was done through surveys, or is that just?
Yes.
The thing that glares at me is two questions. How were the survey participants chosen, and how big a number was decided that would be a fair look at what the people who are using those services, how many survey participants would be a fair assessment of what's going on there? Because I was reading through, well, it's glaring in the environmental health deal that, but did I read that right? 32 surveys were put out, and a fraction of those came back.
Sure.
So we're talking about the opinions of maybe 4 or 5 people versus, so how were those participants chosen?
Sure.
Might affect the end bottom line greatly on, I'm just trying to get my head around is how good's the information we're starting with?
Sure.
And how did we get is it a proper representation of the people out there?
Okay. Well, let's talk about 3 different surveys. So the very first one is the community health needs assessment. A lot of that was in the community, and I'll let Megan talk more about the community health needs assessment.
Sure. The community health needs assessment is an assessment that is done every 3 years. In part, public health is required to do it every 5, and the hospital, because of CMS, is required to do it every 3. So we collaborate and we do it every 3. So it is done by a random survey. We go door to door, and it's randomly chosen census blocks. So we go throughout the entire community, visiting with individuals door to door about what is most important to them for health issues, economic issues in the community, and that is the report that I don't know if you have it in front of you, but it's on our website and it's here.
Yeah,
and that's where we
this
get.
This last one was done by mail though, right? I think I read that, yeah.
We went door to door. Yes, it was door to door. And that's where we come up with those priorities. And so the next step from that community health assessment will be what we call the CHIP, which is the Community Health Improvement Plan. And that is where we take those priorities that the community tells us that they are passionate about and they want us to work on, or they want the community to work on. And then we collaborate with our partners and we make a plan for the community, kind of like a strategic plan, to address those over the next 3 to 5 years. Now, I will say that this community health assessment had many of the same priorities as the prior community health assessment. Because when you're talking community health issues, it takes a long time to make progress on those big issues like substance misuse and mental health. But what we are doing is we are noting that progress, and we're taking that progress and putting it into the next community health improvement plan. Does that help answer some of those questions?
So that was one survey, and a lot of that information was then fed into the strategic plan. There was 2 other surveys that were specific and targeted. So the next survey that we want to talk about is the child care. So child care, and that was for us and to kind of measure improvement activities or improvement efforts that we're trying to make with our child care licensing and child care in the community. So that child care survey was created by Reno County staff, and then results were fed to Randy, and then of course that survey was provided as far as an 82% satisfaction rating with how we are handling child care in the community. The third one was on environmental health, just to get a gauge on how we are doing with environmental health and how are we working with homeowners, how are we working with homeowners that are trying to install their own wastewater system, how are we working with contractors, how are we working with sanitary providers, and how are we doing on that one? Now, I understand only 7 of those responded, But typically, if you're going to respond to a survey, you're going to be really happy with them or you're going to be really upset with them. That you're usually looking at the extremes. So if I've got an 87% satisfaction rating on 7, I'm extremely excited. Now, do we listen to everyone? Yes. Do we want to listen to everyone? Yes. And part of this GovBuilt program that we're implementing is every time that we interact with somebody, they will have a satisfaction. They'll have a satisfaction survey at the very end to let us know what we did good, what we can work on. We want to know what we can do better on. We do have to look at the health of the community. We do have to follow regulations, but we want to balance that on and how can we work with you better in the future.
Well, that just concerned me. It didn't look like very many.
7, correct. But it was 87% is very high because typically if you're going to respond, you're not going to be happy with something either. I was extremely pleased with that rating. And again, they had comments that we can look through those comments. Also, and what we have on our website now that Darcy knows for the last 2 years, we do have a comment on our website. Any contractor at any time would like to provide us with what we can do better, what the problem was with something, and give us a solution. Any day, we will take those comments and we will work on those.
Well, that's good to hear.
Yeah, I pushed my button, by the way, so just so you know.
I confirm you pushed
Carla, first of all, please don't take this in the offensive and the defensive. I appreciate your information from all of you gals. And I feel sometimes like, we're throwing stuff out at you like we're picking on you. I'm not trying to do that. But along with Commissioner Weitzel was talking about in competitiveness with other clinics and stuff, I do know that some of the programs that take away from some of the other clinics, it does negatively impact their resources from either the federal government or some stuff when their numbers fall. When we do that, when we're in direct competition with them. And so I don't know if that's a conversation you ever had. He's asking about having conversations with the clinic, but I'm just for my knowledge, is that a conversation you've ever had of the negative impact financially that it can have, impacting how they can provide reduced services? Because I've had that conversation with one and I didn't realize that existed.
Definitely.
And so that's why I'm throwing this out here today when we talk about is everything we do necessary and what other kind of impacts does it have. I know that personally, it may not be the health department here at the county, that does affect them.
No, we met a lot during COVID as far as looking at services, who could provide what, and we are very aware of they are for-profit, we are not for-profit, so we do not want to step on their toes. So we did balance that. We balanced that against what services they could provide and what we could provide. So there was times that they said, no, we need you to provide it. We cannot take care of this. We need you to take care of this. So no, we were in active discussions with them most of the time during COVID. So we could kind of see and gauge, okay, so then we could say, okay, then they would say, no, we can take it now. So then we would back down. So that was in constant communication with them on services we could provide, services they can provide. Now, there was probably, to be honest, we were probably tired of each other during COVID, so we haven't met for a while. So no, that is a great thing to get back to on look at those arrangements, who's doing what, is there stuff that's not being provided in the community that somebody that can provide, is a duplication of services, and that's an easy discussion that any of us can provide at any time.
Clientele and situations will determine a lot of that. The ability of the clientele and who you are serving will play a huge part in that. What some would consider potentially competitive, because it's not really competitive. Is that a halfway fair statement?
I think what you're trying to say is like we have the VFC program, which is Vaccine for Children. So that is a government program that allows those that have no insurance or if they're on state insurance to be immunized. The Hutchinson Clinic does not provide that at all. So we serve those clients. Prairie Star does provide that, and they usually give that to their clients. They can also have anyone from the Hutchinson Clinic go there. They can serve those clients. But most of those do come through the health department because of our VFC program is very large. And then our other is just underinsured clients.
Varying a little bit from that is mentioned about the child care. I won't call it a get together. I saw so much positive come out of that. And education, which I think education's a big part that you do that maybe others may not do. And this was a good, I don't know, was it on Zoom or one but that really got in depth, serious questions, good conversations, and a complete, I think, better understanding of everybody that came out of that meeting. I know I sure learned a little bit more, and I think that boded well for the way the inspectors and the inspectees conversed and had good conversations over it and got better understanding of rules and regulations and how to work better together. So I would say that same forum probably is a good forum to use in other areas when possible, and depending upon how it can be worked out. So that's my comment from the child care sector. Is that right?
What Commissioner Hurst is referring to is our listening session that we had. It's on our short-term steps for Reno County. It's point E. So we did participate in 2 listening sessions. We had an event on March 11th and 45 providers attended. And then we and that was in person. And then we had another Zoom event on March 25th and 6 providers did attend that event. Just to kind of look at ways in child care that we can do better, that we can listen to providers and the services that we provide and continue to be a local voice for them and to KDHE on things that we can do better in Reno County.
Okay, so just a couple of questions. And maybe you covered this in there. I don't remember seeing it though. With these goals, do you have a way to determine how successful you are at meeting these goals? Because I know like when we create goals where I work, these are the goals, these are the plans we want to do it, and these are how we measure success. Do we have a way to measure success, or are these just general goals? And if not, I would really like to see something like that. Hey, how do we show that we're meeting these goals? What is success look for? Those goals back up.
Correct. And as Megan alluded to, a lot of our goals for public health, they're long-term goals. Some can be short-term measured. Most will be long-term measured. Do you want to?
If I might add a little, yes. I think that we are hoping to wait on the chip to be completed, and there's some lagging steps, which I will say that we're behind the ball game in getting that document out. We were hoping to have it done by now, but it will be done here hopefully by June, just to meet a few other deadlines. But once we have the chip completed, we will have some smart steps that you're referring to. By X number, we will have X, Y, and Z completed, which will fit nicely into our community health, or at least into our strategic plan. We'll be able to insert those things that fit with our strategic goals. So hand in hand, the community health improvement plan and the strategic plan for the health department is working together, so that we're meeting those objectives that the community wants us to meet, and then also we're doing our job as a public health department.
The child care class that you guys do, I actually didn't get a notification for it this time. I've always gotten a notification for it, so I don't know if it didn't go out in the channels that I get, so I just wanted to make you aware of that. But are we still charging for that class, or do we find a way to pay for it?
We are still charging for that class.
Okay.
Yes.
Do we have any way, I know you'd said before there were plans to maybe find some grants or for some other people to pay for it or something like that. So I'm just looking at, if I'm, considering maybe doing it, I'd be a lot more likely to consider it if if it was something I was unsure of, I might not pay the $20, even though it's only $20. But where if it was free and we had more people join, maybe a lower percentage would actually do it, but maybe we get more people. So
there are options for people to get reimbursed for that $20 here on the community. Child Care Aware has an opportunity right now to apply, and then once you become a licensed child care provider, all of those costs are recouped, along with all of the startup costs that somebody incurs once they become a child care provider. And I do believe that once the child care task force gets up and going and gets their processes and improvements going, there will be options as well to reimburse that $20 so that they can provide child care.
Do we have the option of just not charging it? I mean, is that?
Well, I mean, I think that's that's a conversation for all of you to have. I mean, when we do that childcare, that does cost time, staff time, and then it also costs time for technology and various things that we incur by doing that class. We did check around for other communities, their health departments who are doing that same class, and many of them charge more than we're charging. I think Sedgwick County charges $30 to $40. Even McPherson County charges a little bit more than we do. So we feel like we're kind of right in that, we're pretty comparative. We're trying to kind of stay that even level or even below. We know that we need childcare providers, and we want to make it an option for them to become a childcare provider so that we can all go to work. Right. But I think that there's opportunities for childcare providers to get those funds reimbursed right now. And those things are noted in those orientation classes.
Are they noted before so they know if they, okay.
And you're welcome to sit in on one of those classes if you would like. I'd be happy to send you the link.
I was gonna sit in this last one, but I didn't get the link of that.
I'm gonna call Denise out, who's back here, because she was curious and had some questions, and we let her sit in, and she learned a whole lot from that last session that she was in. So the invitation's out for all.
I mean, and maybe I'm completely off base, and there's a lot of 1-4 votes that happen on this commission, but I think if we made it free, I think we would have more participation, and I think we would have more child care providers. And I don't think the revenue we're generating from it is worth potentially not having 1 or 2 extra people a year go into the child care field because they just didn't want to pay to find out more about the class. That's just my opinion. But
I brought that up. I can't remember whether Carla or Randy responded, but I think the response was more if we make $350, that's not doing anything for our budget. I think it was a skin in the game thing. That they were like, hey, if you care enough, pay your $20.
So let's say it's free and 10 extra people go and 1 extra person does it. Then we've got an extra child care provider.
I'm just relaying the philosophical argument. If the commission wants to make it free, I'm sure it can.
In experiences with other events, if the person's got a little bit, and you can get it back if you started. We have more participation and finishing participation when we charge a little bit. That's just my past experiences, especially with doing some seminars at the Quest Center. And just a little bit of money, and maybe provide a donut or something, that brought people who were a little more serious than just standard money. That's just my, I understand where you're coming from, but results just seem like.
And if we do get better results from charging, then maybe I'm wrong. I've been wrong before.
So
So, just maybe to summarize a few things that I heard, I think, there was one comment that made some sense here about, like, if you can come back next time and, provide some measurement goals so we can see how you're improving on your strategic plan. I think there's still, I'm reading a little bit of underlying disbelief in, environmental survey and whether everybody's happy with that, where we're at today. So, you know, again, I'm just reading the room a little bit. I don't know, like that just takes time to like improve from where we were. So, you know, maybe we can continue to take a lot of input there. I would still love to see, like, the thing that I got out of that meeting in November was you guys have a lot on your plate and people are working diligently and maybe overworked to a point where we got you crammed in a sardine can over there. And I hear what you said when you said, well, we got our goals list here, but like, have we actually taken some time to say, like, we got to stop doing these things and focus on like being the best at our goals? And like, I'd love to see, like, okay, we got our goals here. There are things on the outside of that we're just going to stop. Like, I think the commission maybe would leave you alone a little bit more, even if you came back and said, like, we're going to stop these things. Here's some things we're not going to do anymore. We're going to focus on our goals. Like, that's the one thing that was missing in this presentation for me. Commissioner Hurst pushed his button.
Yes, I did for a change. I think one important ingredient is we'll find out and we can get a report back on later on is when you get the chip in. I think that's right now the
just survey.
One
survey.
The community
Go ahead and tell them
health
what it
improvement
means
plan.
again.
The community health improvement plan. So
Yeah.
So
I just didn't hear what he said. I'm sorry.
I think when you get that in, then maybe even some of these goals can be set down for long term, and you could have a short 1 or 2 plan of actions for one of those that shows up that you need to do, and then. But I'm anxious to hear what the CHIP that program when you get it done says, because I think that will give us a lot of help too as a commission.
So I've got one more thing. So H5N1, is that on our radar anywhere? The bird flu. I know 2019 they started doing gain of function research on it again, and it is being passed to mammals in some areas. Is that something that? And it may not be on our radar. You know, I get advanced warning about things like this, and so.
no, we just had in our monthly update from KDHE, I think measles is on the radar, and what was the other one?
It was it's in nursing homes and it affects the elderly and it's on the coast, but there's nothing in the Midwest at all.
Seattle. It's that. It's a. Yeah, but anyway, that's not on KDHE's radar as far as what they're seeing out there in neighboring states and what we should be prepared for in Kansas.
Well, I feel like it was a good stopping point. I feel like we gave you the minimum, and we ought to give you some more time. But the point of like maybe we should wait for the CHIP to come back, and then we can do another one of these. And maybe the district attorney won't take as much time in our meeting next time. We can spend some more time with you. But is that a good place to stop today and come back? When would that be available?
Well, once the CHIP is out, then they'll have to have goals set. So it might be fall.
Say fall.
Fall, probably fall time.
That good? Christian?
Yeah, I don't just set a goal, in my opinion. Now, you can prove me wrong. I'm not telling you what to do, but I think 1 or 2 plan of actions on that will make a difference to me. If you've got goals up here, but they're fine. But okay, let's say, okay, we need to do this first. And then we need to do this second. And I think that, to me, is is very, goals without any plan of actions or results don't mean anything.
We're all pretty simple, like, and we appreciate all the hard work on this, but, you know, just boiling it down, like, we get so much information every 2 weeks, hundreds of documents. So if you can help us understand, you know, what your priorities are, how we can help you be successful, just keep boiling it down for us.
Thank you for your efforts.
Anything to?
The only thing I would add is we didn't really get much on environmental health today, but as a reminder, May 30th, on that fifth Tuesday, that fifth meeting of the fifth day is environmental health and septic systems, to come back and have more discussions on that part of the health department without the other parts of the different sectors.
And that can be a bit of a can of worms anyway, so it's probably good we separate that out. Thank you.
By the way, thank you for dinner the other day. I stopped in at lunch and the lessons I got in the hallway. 2 ladies attacked me and wanted to talk to me about uteruses, and so anyway, I'll just leave it there.
Thanks for coming again.